The Epstein files just dropped. Thousands of pages, sealed for years, are now public, and they confirm what investigators suspected all along. Jeffrey Epstein was never a hedge fund manager. There is no evidence he ever made a single legitimate trade. No fund documents, no real business. The billionaire genius story was a complete lie. So here's the real question those files answer. How did he afford a $77 million mansion, private islands, and the cash to pay teenage girls? The answer is 3 crimes, so obvious and so brutal that dozens of people looked the other way while blood money built an empire of abuse. In the late 1980s, Epstein worked at Towers Financial, a company that claimed to be a debt collector. In reality, Towers was running a $450 million Ponzi scheme, one of the biggest frauds in American history at the time. Stephen Hoffenberg later admitted Epstein was the architect, the one who designed financial products so confusing that investors couldn't tell it was fraud. Towers paid Epstein $840,000 a year. For someone with no finance degree and no Wall Street experience, that wasn't a salary, it was a cut of the crime. Hoffenberg then handed Epstein $2 million as a so-called loan that was never repaid. When Towers collapsed in 1993, Hoffenberg went to prison for 18 years. Epstein walked away never charged, with millions and a complete playbook for stealing from the rich. That's when things got darker. Epstein claimed he managed money for multiple billionaires. The files show he really had one client, Leslie Wexner, worth billions. In 1991, Wexner gave Epstein total power of attorney over his entire fortune. This wasn't just investment authority, this was complete control. Epstein could sign checks as Wexner, buy property as Wexner, and legally act as Wexner in any transaction. Epstein sold himself as the ultimate fixer for problems rich people couldn't afford to have made public. Once he had that power, he collected dirt, photos, secrets, recordings. Walking away meant exposure. That wasn't business anymore. That was a trap. Then the looting started. A $77 million Manhattan mansion was transferred to Epstein for $0. It wasn't sold, it wasn't gifted, it was just taken. And Wexner stayed silent for 8 years. That was extortion. But mansions don't pay for daily trafficking operations. Epstein needed cash, physical and untraceable. Between 2003 and 2013, he withdrew cash thousands of times from JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank. Every withdrawal stayed under $10,000, usually around $7,500. Why? Because banks must report anything above that as a money laundering red flag. So Epstein withdrew $7,500, then did it again and again for 10 years. That pattern is a federal crime. He pulled out nearly $2 million this way. That wasn't spending money. That was a hidden payroll funding abuse. And the most disgusting part, both banks knew. Internal systems flagged him as high risk. Deutsche Bank compliance called him out. JP Morgan watched for years. They kept the accounts open anyway. JP Morgan only filed reports covering $1.3 billion after he was dead. They chose profit over stopping a child trafficker. And there was one more scam. Epstein created a fake shell company in the Virgin Islands, secured a 90% tax exemption, and moved hundreds of millions through fake consulting fees. Between 2013 and 2017 alone, it reported $656 million in income. Epstein walked away with roughly $300 million in stolen tax breaks, money meant for schools and hospitals, not private islands of abuse. That's how Epstein really made his fortune. Not genius, not trading, just crime layered on crime while institutions looked away. Subscribe right now to find out which current billionaires are running this exact same playbook today.